Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I bring you greetings from Leader Pelosi, and it's really true, Harold, that there are very, very few instances that she would choose not to be with you. I understand the importance of this day to her, and we thank you for your graciousness and understanding. But I bring her warmest greetings and appreciation for the role that you and your members play in lifting our country. Washington doesn't have enough people who know what it feels like to be told that you grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. We don't have enough people who understand what it feels like to feel unwelcome as you rise up the ladder. We don't have enough people who know what it feels like when you get to the top of the ladder to want to give back, not pull the ladder up after you, but make it available to those who come after you. Your president, Harold Schaitberger, is one of those people that we need more of in Washington. Harold, we thank you for lifting up our country, representing your members, and being a leader in the great fight to rise the middle class in our country. Thank you, Harold Schaitberger, so very, very much. You come to this city today as America's rescuers. So much has changed in the 12 years since everybody saluted you as America's rescuers. We will never forget the image in the rubble of Ground Zero that as the then President of the United States stood, bullhorn in hand, letting the rest of the world know that America would recover, he stood next to a firefighter. All Americans claim to stand next to firefighters in those very dark days. But in the 12 years that have passed, sadly, we have gone from an attitude of thank God for what firefighters do for us to God forbid what firefighters cost us. In my state, in New Jersey, your brothers and sisters have endured an unprecedented assault, an unjustified assault on their pensions, their health benefits, and their collective bargaining rights. Too many people in both parties talked about how your benefits were too generous and your hours were too scarce. But then on October 29th of 2012, as the worst storm in our state's history bore down on New Jersey and New York and Connecticut, people didn't seem to mind the fact that you were on the job. They didn't seem to think that our companies were overstaffed. They thought they were understaffed, and they were right. America calls you via 911 when you are most needed at urgent times. I hope that you are here this week to call upon your representatives in Congress to stand by you, not just in times of emergency, but every year, every week, every day. You are engaged in a great argument in this country about what makes us prosperous and strong and successful. One side of the argument says that America gets stronger when the guy who owns the building makes as much money as he possibly can and succeeds and prospers. Our side of the argument says that America succeeds and prospers when the guy who owns the building does very well. We want him to. But when the accountant who works in the building can afford to send her kids to college, and when the real estate broker who leases space in the building can afford to retire with dignity. And yes, we believe when the janitor who cleans the building gets an increase in his minimum wage. And America certainly succeeds and prospers when there's an emergency in the building and they call 911 and there is a full-staffed fire department ready to respond, not hit by layoffs, not hit by cutbacks, not hit by a withdrawal of collective bargaining. See, we believe in the Democratic caucus that a great and strong America requires a great and strong middle class, that our country grows from the middle out, not simply from the top down. This is about economics, but it's not just about economics. Because the strength of our country is reflected in the other things that you do when you're not on duty. You teach CCD and Hebrew school and other religious institutions. You coach Little League baseball teams and hockey teams. You serve on boards of education. And most importantly, you raise children and grandchildren to be good American citizens. If your pension's under attack and you're under a looming threat of layoffs and your house is dropping in value, it's hard to do all of those things as often or as well as you should. The fight for America's middle class is not just about dollars and cents. It's about the values that make our country strong. But make no mistake about it. You have stepped this week into the middle of that fight as the Ryan Republican budget is considered on the House floor this week. Now, it is absolutely true that a stronger middle class and a stronger America requires a smaller debt and less of a burden on our children and grandchildren in years to come. And we know that we can achieve that smaller debt and deficit in a fair and balanced way. We believe that deficits go down when you replace unemployment checks with paychecks, which is why we believe in an economic growth program that rebuilds our schools and our roads and invests in research and development will lift the country out of the deficit and debt that it's in. We believe there should be more than that. We think we should get rid of the ethanol subsidy that pays corn farmers in Iowa more money to sell their corn to a refinery than it does to a food company, raises food prices, increases our carbon footprint, and increases our deficit at the same time. We believe that the wealthiest in this country should pay their fair share. In the last decade, the top 5% of Americans have gotten 93% of the pay raises in this country. And the rest of us have gotten 7% of the pay raises in this country, which is why we supported and President Obama signed on New Year's Day an increase in the top rate for people making more than $450,000 a year, back to the rates under President Clinton that created 24 million new jobs and 500,000 new businesses. And yes, we believe that because they have served honorably, done their duty well, and served our country proudly, that we should save money by bringing home every last man and woman from Afghanistan as soon as possible. But we also understand this. A strong and prosperous middle class must educate its children. The Ryan budget that's on the floor this week cuts reading tutors, teachers of kids with autism or Down syndrome, student loans so your sons and daughters can go to college. This is not deficit reduction. This creates a new deficit for our country. When you're last in line when they hand out the diplomas, you will be last in line when they hand out the paychecks as well. Failing to invest in your sons' and daughters' education is a recipe for the destruction of the American middle class. Rising middle class requires a decent and secure retirement with stable Medicare and stable pensions. Washington, D.C. is the only city in the world where you get praised for saying that a 65-year-old firefighter is too young to get Medicare, but a CEO making $65 million a year is too poor to afford the giving up the tax credit for his private jet. One of the proposals that has been kicked around here is to make Firefighters and iron workers and police officers wait until after they're 65 years of age to qualify for Medicare. Anybody who's ever ridden on the back of an apparatus or driven a police car or climbed a bridge and built a building would understand what's wrong with that. But Mr. Ryan and the Republicans do not. So I would say this. If they want the American people to wait longer for their retirement, let's make their retirement happen sooner. And in 2014, let's take the majority away from the House Republicans and put this country back on track. Once again, Mr. Ryan's proposals, supported by the vast majority of the Republican Party, would abolish the Medicare guarantee for people under the age of 55 years of age. Instead of the Medicare that your mom and your grandmom get right now, they would get a voucher to go out and buy private insurance from the loving, nurturing, happy health insurance companies of the United States of America. My friends, you can't make a profit taking care of 85-year-olds with dementia. You can't make a profit taking care of 67-year-olds with type 2 diabetes. And you can't sustain America's middle class if you destroy Medicare for those under the age of 55, because it'll destroy it for all the rest of us. I don't think that we should end the Medicare guarantee in 2014. I think we should end the House Republican majority in 2014 and put the country back on the right track. Make no mistake about it. Their proposals are ultimately grounded on the argument that America does better when people at the top have more, whatever they want, whenever they want it, as much as they want. And the number one roadblock to that philosophy is the union movement of the United States of America. We are in the midst of a war on collective bargaining in this country. Those of you from Wisconsin felt the brunt of it first and most dramatically. And I thank the IAFF for the tireless effort on behalf not just of the firefighters of Wisconsin, but for all the people of Wisconsin. Then it spread to Ohio before the voters of that state rejected Governor Kasich's assault on public sector collective bargaining. Regrettably, it spread to my state, where people in both parties stripped collective bargaining rights away from public safety professionals and others. Then it came to Michigan, end of last year, in the private sector, where the so-called right-to-work law, which is really the right-to-freeload law, that says you can get the benefits of higher wages and health benefits and retirement, but not pay the dues that everybody else does, found its way through the Michigan legislature. Without a strong middle class, there will be no strong America. Without unions, there will be no strong middle class. And without collective bargaining, there will be no union movement. Tomorrow, in the House Education Labor Committee, we'll be considering a bill that effectively paralyzes the National Labor Relations Board, puts it out of business until we have a Republican president. My friends, that's going to be a very long time, I assure you. Puts the NLRB out of business until we have a Republican president. We need to take this fight to collective bargaining, every Democrat, every Republican, every House member, and every senator this week. As I've said here before, their agenda is to put us on our knees in our relationships with our employers. Our agenda is to sit at the table in our relationship with our employers. And make no mistake about it, if they insist that we get on our knees in order to, and give up the right to sit at the table, we will not go on our knees, we will not sit at the table, we will rise to our feet and defend collective bargaining in every state across this union for every employer in this country. So this week, when they tell you that they really respect your sacrifice for the country, tell them it's nice that you respect our sacrifice, but you ought to finance the life-saving equipment that lets us go home safely to our families at the end of the day. When they tell you that they're proud of you. Tell them it's nice that you express pride for us, but even nicer if you funded the FIRE Act and the SAFER grants to the levels that they should be. And when they tell you that they deeply respect your commitment to public safety, tell them it's time that they deeply respected the national commitment to collective bargaining instead of unilateral imposition of terms on the working people of this country. When you call 911 in this country, you can count on the fact that well-trained, patriotic, fearless, brave Americans will respond. But there are fewer people at the end of that call. Departments are smaller, experience is diminishing as people are pushed into early retirement. It is harder to recruit young recruits because of the conditions that have been created. It is time to stand and say that our country requires and demands a strong collective bargaining system in the private and the public sector, that our country cannot rise and cannot succeed unless we stand. So Leader Pelosi, the Democratic caucus, and I, we stand with Harold. He stands with you. You stand with the union movement of this country. The union movement stands with the great middle class of this country that says we will be more free and more prosperous, more strong, and more successful if we continue to stand together. May God bless you on your appointed duties protecting our communities, and God continue to bless our great United States of America. Thank you so very, very much.